All right, good morning. I have some time before I head out the door. It is about 5:47 a.m. CST, but that's where I live now. So it's a really nice, gray, shitty day out there. It's humid. It's just a gross, sticky southern day, which is fine. I know what I signed up for. I'm here for about a year, maybe less, maybe more. I really think I'm heading back west pretty soon. That's not what I thought it would be out here. I kind of, how it's almost like you romanticize something when you're away from it. I saw a funny cartoon when I was a kid. There was a sailor at sea, and he and his wife, he was lost at sea, and she was on her widow's peak, and she was looking out the ocean, and he was looking at out over the the port or starboard side, holding on to the railing of the boat, and she was picturing this big, handsome, chiseled guy, and she longed for him. She was sad, and he had this hot supermodel in mind. And then when they finally he found land again. He was rescued, and then they were both kind of fat and ugly. They were disappointed at first, but then they were happily back in each other's arms. It was really sweet, kind of a beautiful sentiment. But the difference is that this is no wife I miss. This is no girlfriend for which my heart mourns her absence. This is, it's not a torturous separation. This is just really, I feel like eating a cup of warm tomato soup and watching fucking Matlock in this town, which are both great things. But, not Matlock, I don't know. Something about Andy Griffith when he got older, something about him, I don't know. So this something was kind of creepy to me. I don't know. There was something dark. I always pictured him for some reason as a kid. I didn't trust him. When I was a kid, I was like, he has some upside down naked bodies hanging in his basement. Nah, truth is, he was probably an all right fella. I never got to meet him. But I did see that one movie he made where he was on death row and they shaved his head at the end before, or they put a bald cap on him, I'm sure. But he killed somebody or some people, and at the end he was like this good old country guy. But at the end they found out he was a murderer, and he lied to the jury, and they killed him. It was pretty cool. Come to think of it, now that I'm remembering that motherfucker, he did a space series. I forgot what it was called, but they went to the moon. I think that was him. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. See, this is where my mind goes with my first cup of coffee. With my first cup of coffee, my mind goes into the Sado Masochism of Andy Griffith, and then to the moon with him. So, I really need to meet a girlfriend. I really do. And there were just some shows that will always be, iconic to me. Always be iconic to me, like Quincy. Remember Quincy? Jack Klugman played the coroner, the ME. He played Quincy, and what else? There were so many different things to watch back in the day on TV. I remember TV is not the same. I say that because I've recently seen it, and I like regular old TV, and it's so bad. It was never probably good. Inside the zeitgeist, whatever. I've always wanted to use that word. But it probably wasn't, only compared to now, right? Only compared to now is probably okay. But, and I think that even back then, there's probably somebody talking to somebody going, oh man, remember back when we had this, and wow, Quincy really sucks ass. Right. So, it's just, I think it's a generation by generation. It's generational. But anyway, the point is that I woke up, I'm having my first cup of coffee. If that's the point, this video is going to suck. But it's audio only. I'm really tired of, when I like doing talking head videos when I have something really to say, something good to say, I reckon. But I don't have anything good to say today. I don't have anything interesting on my mind. And the truth is, the content I create on this channel to me is not very interesting. I started this channel for me to just talk about literature, about writing. It was called Jeff Stewart Author for a long time. And then I I got into it, and my first video was awesome because it was new, the energy was there, and I was having fun. I liked the way I sounded okay. I was in a little tar shack booth I built in Hickson, Tennessee, about 80 miles from here. And now here, sitting in my rock and roll fantasy from back then, I went to Arizona and I acquired this studio and some better gear, and now I'm in this little room about 80 miles northeast of where I truly began. I began in Albuquerque, technically, but I really got into professional, attempting to sound professional for the first time. The time before that, from May to February of 21, it was just me learning, having fun, experimenting, accepting my sound, and not sounding robotic, which, I watched a guy talk about that too. I won't get into VO in this video because it's boring. It's boring to people who know me and go, fuck, dude, you've been talking about this shit for years. Do something, book work. But, to sound like yourself and not like a robot, today I walked down the street. It's hard to, when you get in front of a microphone, it can be hard to be authentic unless you're a podcaster with a dynamic. But in a studio with a pro condenser, you almost feel the need to shine vocally, and you kind of back off what the content is and focus on your sound. And I think it's really dumb. And I think I'm officially over that now. It took a while, but when you first get into this, you get close to your mic, you want to sound big. You want to sound big. You want to sound you want that commanding authority in your voice. You want, not necessarily the voice of God. That means something other than what people think it means. It really means just you're addressing a bunch of people. It doesn't mean the thunder voice of God, like Don LaFontaine, in a world. That guy was, holy fuck, that guy must have heard himself speak once he broke puberty and was like, fuck, yes, right? Or someone, like a singer, like Glenn Danzig. He must have been talking to his mom in the kitchen and, Glenn, you want some cheese on your omelet, honey? Yeah. Oh, and he was probably too much horror business, driving late at night. I want some cheese on that, so you never know. I've always had a love-hate relationship with my sound because, I think sometimes we have a different perceived image of each other, don't we? Of ourselves too. Whenever I see myself in a reflection, I always hear a really monotone, blah, blah, blah. But really, and I hear myself, I'm like, God, who's that whiny teenager, and that's okay. I'm okay with it now because one thing I'm learning is, I think this is pervasive. So this might not just be about voiceover. This might apply to anything in life, right? This is, for me, once I learned how to just let it go, be authentic, I hate all those catchphrases like, be your authentic self over here. Whenever I hear someone go, be your authentic self, I always picture some Brooklynite going, hey, be your fucking accentive. Well, close enough. Be your fucking authentic self over here, and there's something just two worlds colliding whenever I hear bad advice or cheesy advice like that. But I was going back into why I wanted to read today. What I wanted to do today for this video is I wanted to just check in and get back under the 416. It's above me. And I wanted to try to do something, something more descriptive without quotations, no dialogue, I guess is what I could have said to save a whole sentence. But when I was 25 years old, no, I was 24. And was I 20? Yeah, I was 24. And I went to Alaska. I fell into a job in Tempe, Arizona. I walked about 8 blocks to work. I was a cook at a place called Palapa. It was by the coffee plantation, and it was a cool job for me because one day I was bussing tables, and I was helping somebody clean the patio. I rolled burritos and made soft tacos and fish tacos and shit for people. And I remember, one of those, like, it wasn't like in the restaurant, but they'd come in past the bar, a little side part of the restaurant, and I would make and food for the restaurant too, burritos and shit. So when I was out front and I was bussing, I walked past a dude, and he had a skinny guy, kind of a beak nose, blonde hair, like kind of sticking down from his bandana. When people go bald, they do that. And his bang was kind of hanging down. I looked at him and I'm like, what's your name? And he told me his name was like Craig. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, how are you? And was in a band called the Wipers. I guess they were still around. And back then I wasn't really into that kind of, I didn't really know who the Meat Puppets were back then. I did, but I didn't. I heard them, but I didn't really get into them, is a good way to put it. But they're from there, and the Wiper, and he was there, and I was talking to him, and I go, what's up? He's, oh, we're still around, and, really nice guy, shy, humble, And I thought, okay, this is cool. This is somebody who is, I guess, kind of famous. Not the famous good. I don't really like anyone who knows me knows. I avoid actors. I avoid famed and named. Not because of their, I like the accomplishment, but often it's like the lengths they go to, the bits of themselves they broke off and sold, if not the entirety of themselves, to get to that level. And they need that. And to me, it's just sickening. But he was a nice guy, and he created some good music back in the day, and I just thought it was so cool that he was quiet. He had a really nice way about him, and my little girlfriend, before she dumped me, would come pick me up after work, and she'd be like, who's that old guy you always talk to? And I'm like, well, it's my buddy from an old band back in the day, and, oh, man, he's kind of creepy, and I should have taken that as a green light to dump her first, but you know what? Back then, everything was so goddamn innocent, and after she and I were no longer a thing, I'd see her around here and there, and there was never any bad vibe. There was never any like, oh, you know what, you broke my heart, because she never did. And that's something I'm kind of proud of, because, when you go through that, even as a young man, when your first breakup happens, I think South Park covered that perfectly. when Wendy dumped Stanford Token, that was one of the truest captures of a male broken heart. It just was. It was so good. And I thought then the way the goth kids played into it when Stan becomes a goth for part of the episode, then realizes how fucking lame it is. And it was just it was true though. And when you get your heart broken like that, you develop a callus, right? You get a callus on your heart. And then as you get older, you realize, God, what a waste of time that was. Life is short. And you start to also realize there's a nature inherent, in both genders. So you kind of just accept it and you go on. That said, there are some really good people out there on both sides of that line. And I think that the trick is being, I guess, available and fucking receptive to it without searching. If you look for something, you're going to find something. It's better if something finds you on a human emotional level, not like career-wise or goal-wise. But if you go out searching for a girlfriend, a wife, a boyfriend, a husband, I would imagine you're going to settle because you want something. And that's the one thing in life for which you should not settle. There's not a middle of the road there that's going to be pleasant or pliable or even sustainable without a lot of resentment, bitter self-reflection, and a constant corner from which you want to scratch your way out by any means. But worse than that, you get comfortable and contented, and next thing you know, you're just, fuck it, what's for dinner? Fuck that. Anyway, back then I was working. I worked with some characters. Back in the day, I think, and I'll just say this, I don't want to get on this gravy train here on ride this wave out. I do it a lot because I feel that way. I agree with the fact that smart technology has dulled people's shine. It's taken away their edge. And I remember I used to work with all these characters, and nowadays I can't even imagine the memories I would have created for myself had I had a fucking iPhone in my pocket, or I was filming everything like they do now, or every move I made was documented, right? You can't be alone anymore. You always have to have your little digital fucking narc on you to either, film somebody in a car crash or somebody telling you off. Or I was watching a video one time of these little fucking spoiled pricks on the beach, and there were these dudes walking, just minding their own business. They were just walking, and they were like, beachheads. They were probably going to Muscle Beach, but they were like younger dudes. They were walking, this fucking kids, these two kids with their phones are fucking with them, man, holding their phones up recording. And you could just see it in their fucking eyes. They were older, and they were like, whew, you're so lucky you're alive in this fucking time frame. But they were adults, and they showed grace. They just, eventually ignored them, and the dude buzzed off. The kids buzzed off to somewhere else to, go circle somewhere else and feed somewhere else. But I would have a problem with that. And at the same time, we're all very lucky to be alive when during all of this smart technology, before it completely shifts the other way and becomes, our fucking master. I do see that coming. I think you'd be an idiot not to. Maybe not in this lifetime, but there's going to come a need for where flesh and blood will just be arbitrary. It'll just be something that might not even be needed. And so, what is really needed though? We're alive. We know what the score is now, but nobody can see 6 months down the road. You can't anticipate, right? There's no fucking crystal ball. Well, anyway, I was working with a young smart ass like myself, and he and I we both had the same aversion to the homeless hippies coming in, the vegans that. We fucked with them a lot too. I wrote about it in my first book, but he popped by my house one day. I was renting a room, and I was just becoming a writer. I had my first electric typewriter. I was writing poems and stories. It was running out of me like fucking like madness. I couldn't stop creating. And I would just spend my nights, smoking cigarettes. I couldn't empty my ashtray fast enough. Back when I was when you're young and invincible, you can have juvenile habits, and you can survive through it. I don't think I even coughed until I turned 30, and then or maybe 24. No, that's true. No. I started coughing around that time frame because I smoked. I think I started smoking when I was 22. And I quit. I quit literally a generation later. I just stopped cold turkey. And, you always hear stuff like, oh, you're never going to quit. No, it's not true. You can just walk away. You can close that chapter. It's not hard to do. They just tell you it is. And now the thought of it makes me slightly ill. You know what I mean? So you can change. What a great song. They were a great band, by the way. Tears for Fears, people loved them or hated them, but I thought they were fucking brilliant. I still listen to them. They're still in my iTunes. Now, one more thing about smart technology. I dig iTunes. I can hear whatever I want, whenever I want. I still have records. I still have CDs, but, on the go or almost actually constantly, come to think of it. If I'm being honest, I only use iTunes for music. When I first moved in here, I blasted some vinyl because I had my space back and I could, but I typically listen to things digitally. Anyway, my wind is getting long here in this video, but I worked on a fishing boat in Alaska. He came over, he's like, hey man, we're going to Alaska to work on a fishing boat, and long story quicker, I went up there with him. We sailed from Ballard on a 194-foot processing ship, and then a boat, and then we set anchor next to another processor in Queechak Bay, about 7 miles off of Bristol Bay, and by Naknek, you could kind of barely see the outline of land. We set anchor, and we dropped anchor there, and then a big Japanese tramper, huge, got next to us. So we were in the middle between the workboat that was already there, ourselves, and then the big Japanese tramper, and it turned out we were working for the Japanese, and they would harvest the fish, the roe, from which we got the fish eggs, and they would make a killing off of those things. And by the way, the fish flesh, the fish themselves, they would make a ton of money, I'm sure. I mean, once someone told me they made like 75 grand or 35 grand for a pallet of caviar, the fish eggs. I forget. But it was they were at sea like sometimes a year at a time. Little crazy fucking crew, and they'd watch you work, and it was interesting. It was interesting to see, look on a map and go, wow, we're right here. And this is Japan's here, Russia's here. That might have been the cold air even in summer coming in from Siberia. Who knows where your mind goes? And you're always moving, and the sunsets were just devastating. And it kind of got twilight for 45 minutes, then the sun went right back up again. It was ethereal. But we lucked out in our boat because we had a progressive kind of boat, I guess. There were boats with lifers and like hardened criminals. We had a boat full of like probably a college crowd. And the lifers up there were like, they were also kind of partners in the company. And so we had here's the deal. We had a 5-star chef, and a lot of boats have a great chef because you need good food to keep your body healthy while you're working. You work a lot. You don't get a day off. It's typically, it was like our job was like 17, 18 hours a day, I think. Maybe sometimes more. If you pulled the double or triple, you could catch, we didn't make a lot every week either. There's a misconception there. I mean, we didn't make a lot. The company we worked for the contract for which we signed on, was like basically, you made like, you break it down like $1,100 a week. But back then, for people my age, that was like, holy fuck, I never made that much in a month at that point in my life, Minimum wage back then was like, what, $5.50, up from like $3.35 when I first joined the workforce when I was a teenager. So there was that. There was that contrast to like, wow, I'm making like, I'm not working like 90,000 hours to make $239 in a paycheck. I'm making, 3 or 4 digits a week. You made it, but the hours were so long and crazy, and you barely slept. You smelled like fish no matter where you worked on the boat. And you had everything in society was mirrored in that little boat life for a while, and so people in that job, that job was such a mind job too, because there were men like 4 times my size who had to go home after a week. They cried, they couldn't take it. There were people who got weird infections. There were people who had allergies that they weren't aware of, and their minds played tricks on them, and they had to chop her back, and then from neck they got a puddle jumper back across, back to Seattle. And those exceptions were not us who, if you broke contract, got fired. You were then responsible for your travel up there, your food and board, all otherwise free, providing you complete your contract and get back on land to get your paycheck without getting fired, getting sick, having to quit, or wanting to quit and walking. Well, I guess you couldn't really walk off that job. I mean, you couldn't even swim off that job. You'd be dead. You'd be dead in the water of hypothermia. But within, less than half a minute probably. I mean, adrenaline would take over. You could survive, if you had to swim boat to boat. When we were hired, we had to watch videos of boats going down in the same area where we were working because they wanted us to have a full awareness of I guess, dangers that we were we were stepping into a different world. You know what I mean? And we had a storm in the Bering Sea, and it was brutal. There were all kinds of things that happened in that job. But, we roughed through it. We got it done. And when I got back on land, I remember that feeling of ruggedness, that nature, like, big beard, like just fucking, I just did some time at sea. And you really get a different take on society when you get back. And like I was saying earlier, the actual society on land mirrored the society on the boat, except of course the freedom to go out and do shit and meet girls, or apart from like creature comforts. Really, the boat had its own hierarchy. You probably, I imagine, like how being locked up would be like, or like having there was a hierarchy of behavior on that boat. Didn't fucking tell on people. You didn't fucking snitch. You didn't, if you were late, you found a way to sneak past it all. But, if you if you saw something sketchy, you kept your fucking mouth shut. But again, we had a pretty badass boat when we got back, and I made a couple of lifelong friends on that boat. And I'll tell you what, it was interesting. Would I do it again? Fuck no. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. If you don't have dogs or, something to really, I would say something to live for, but even though they say 1 out of 10 boats go down up there, I felt pretty safe. Even during the storm when we thought we were going to capsize, I just felt like, no, it's going to be okay. But that could have also been self-preservation kicking in. It really could have been just that, the defense, your mechanism, your body defending itself. Like, okay, you're going to be fine. Just you're going to be okay. You're not going to die. Don't stroke out here at 25 on a bunk with like 5 desert rats sleeping above and around you. You got this. You're going to live. You're going to fight another day. And of course, we all did. But I wanted to jump on here today, and I wanted to read a little bit about that time. But, I've read this a lot on the channel. It's unlisted now, but this video went longer, the blah blah, than I planned. But that's okay. That's just fine. So the idea was for me to read some stuff that wasn't dialogue heavy, or no dialogue at all. And I'm going to read something, not the storm or the seeing the whale and that dramatic moment in the book, which is probably my favorite part of the book. And a lot of people who have read March of Time and Skin will say, oh, dude, that book, that part of the book just got me. And that and the breakup part, I think, were the biggest ones for people. Oh, and there was also a part about some punk rockers. The character picks up with a little puppy they had, and in his van. And there was a really harsh part of the book that one reader literally told me I close the book after that. And I understand, but it's part of the book. You know what I mean? Like, if that threw you, if a dog losing its life, which is horrible, but if that took you out of the book, when reality comes knocking on your own door, you're fucked. Or maybe I could be more philosophical about it and say, well, you did your job, or you overdid your job. Either way, you did your job. It doesn't matter what the result was. The work is the work. So, let me pull this up here. All right, I'm getting short on time, so I'm going to read this and close out. It's self-explanatory. After the first week, we were hardening, getting mean. One time the wake-up girl came in and told me to get up. I told her I would get up if she left. She was getting loud with me, and I was tired. I could see her silhouette after she yanked my curtain back. I slept naked in my rack because it was the only way to keep my sheets somewhat free of the smell of fish. She looked me over quickly and told me to sit up. I closed the curtain. She jerked it open again and started barking commands. I reached around and found my shoe and held it back. She turned and began waddling toward the door. I thought the hell with it and threw it. It hit her big ass. She shrieked and bounced out. I laid back down. The guys in the racks above and around me laughed tiredly. I punched in 2 minutes late. The 2 foremen were in the dry room. They asked me why I was late. They were punks. They only worked 12 hours and they had their own rooms with televisions. They had these smiles. They didn't have real jobs. They walked around. One of them told the other that he thought I would like tank diving. He looked at me. I liked the way it sounded. Tank diving. I thought of diving under the water in full scuba gear, doing some kind of repair or freeing a snagged net, touching sea life. The younger one nodded at me. You're tank diving today. Sure. I was excited. It pissed them off. Tank diving. Rubber pants up to your chest in the hull of a catching boat, shoveling rotted fish into the grinder for bait, up to your hips in them. It turned out that the older foreman was fucking the laundry girl. I knew I'd find politics out there sooner or later. I quickly understood why we had such a good cook. The best food was needed for the job, and everything about the job smelled like fish. Everything you owned. It didn't matter where you had it on the boat. You never completely got used to everything. Dreams on the water were different, more supernatural. Life on the water was still abnormal, since the ground was always shifting. 2 weeks passed. Then 3 weeks. I began to think that this was my new life. and I was never getting out of there. We all thought that. We had 45 days of work left. I became close to people on the boat who back in the world I would never consent to know. We looked out for each other, covered each other. When I had to work the remaining hours on the slime line next to Ricky and his hand cramped, I took on his share. Or downstairs when I was off a pound for my weight, Buck would toss me a rotted fish from the floor and I would shove it toward the bottom of the box. We all found ways to duck the order and work in different areas, as long as we were working fast. There were so many workers, yet the two punks had me singled out. They were on me constantly. The Japanese were everywhere, watching you move. They were compulsive. The machines were louder and louder. In most factories, when a machine broke down, you had to stop. Not there. You immediately found something to do, or else you were tank diving. Toad took a fondness toward me. He was such a fat blob. When he sat in the break room, his stomach pushed out and hung over his knees. One day after I had accidentally spit on the heads of the foremen from the top floor, I had to work the slime line all day. Toad and I sat in the break room and drank coffee. He was the king of the slime line. He truly took pleasure in watching his workers suffer. He mostly left me alone. We sat and rested. He nodded to me. "You're a good worker. Keep it up. I started out just like you." I nodded back. "But you also ended up just like you." Toad's game was trading punches. He was all blubber, so you couldn't hurt him. He hit me hard. I held my arm and called him a fucker. He leaned back and tightened his arm. Come on, show me what you got." I brought it up from the floor and hit his arm with everything I had. He tapped his arm. "Not bad." He blew his whistle and everyone outside ran for the line. I was reaching down for my gloves when he really let me have it, in the same arm. It dropped me to one knee on the floor. I looked up to see him padding out the door as fast as he could, cackling. I couldn't get him back until we were off the clock, but by then I didn't care. One day I was folding boxes for the boys downstairs when the older of the two foremen came out and sent the redneck to a catching boat. The other foreman came out and they talked and looked at me with much evil. "Hey, Stephen King, get over here," one of them said. They laughed. I walked over. "You guys are good. You should take that shit to the stage." They had these perpetually stupid looks on their faces. "That's enough. You think you can offload Hemingway?" They laughed again. I shook my head at them. "You two are hilarious. How do you land on your material?" "Look, freak, can you do it or not?" "I can do it." "Good, you're an offloader, starting tomorrow. Until then, tank dive." Sons of bitches. They made me tank dive through my lunch. I got the last lap, though, because the substitute offloader was on B and I was on D, so after his double shift, that gave me 4 extra hours to sleep. I loved the job. I wore my street clothes and I was outside all day. I listened to my Walkman. It was considered the hardest job on the boat. Boxes full of frozen fish off the belt and in your arms quickly. The belt had various speeds, and after my first 2 hours I was doing a better job than the redneck. I was full of bruises from finding a method, but once I found it, I ran with it. I was loading pallets faster than they could throw them on the belt. I could have a pallet loaded before the crane operator swung the boom back over with the old net. I started getting 5 minutes in between loads. This bothered the Moron brothers. They started having the worker set the belt speed for maximum after the belt was full. I just picked it up a bit and went faster. It gave me even more time between loads. Word had already gotten around to the main men about my speed, and the foreman had to go back to the way it was before with the conveyor. They still had me after my double shift. It was a slime line or the tank. Then I talked to their foreman, a partner of the company, into letting me switch onto the C shift when the lesser fucked of the two foremen was ending his shift and the other was coming on. I had to pull a triple shift to match the time difference, but it was worth it. Now I would offload and walk right over and fold boxes. A lot of people were sent out to fold boxes while I worked. I liked it best when Ricky or Buck were sent out there. We would actually get to have some fun, but usually the foreman would send a grubby little spy to watch me and report back to them. Whenever they sent a mutant from that boat to fold boxes, I worked even faster. Time went by fast out there. I had it made. I now knew how the toughest prisoner felt in the yard, how it felt to live in the coldest lair in hell. We had 2 weeks left. Ricky had been having a fling with an older laundry lady on the workboat, and he was more cheerful than ever. One day I was bitching to him about getting busted back to grading since the foreman gave the redneck his job back offloading after he started a fight with one of the Hawaiians on their boat. The partners had all left the boat for the rest of the season, and I was bumped back to the D shift, back in their clutches. When I tried to duck the slime line and head down to the scales, they made me tank dive. I was bitching to Ricky endlessly over lunch. He put his arm around me. "You want to know what I think? I think, fuck 'em, I'm making money. He was right. I felt stupid for getting mad over it. It was only a week more. I could take anything for 2 weeks. I went to my locker to grab my gear. That was from March of Time and Skin. That was the fishing boat parts of the book, obviously, or one of the parts of the book. I think it's the longest part of the book that's in one spot, or maybe his first girlfriend is. I forget, but that was, I didn't throw in a lot of the juicy parts of in there because, well, get the book if you like it. I'll leave a link to it below. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Lots to do, and, I just really want to be in my booth all day drinking coffee, but in a perfect world, that's possible. Today, it's not, but I have a car stereo, I have a library in iTunes with everything from metal to classical, and there's a really smooth freeway out there waiting. So, hope you guys have a good day today, and I will talk to you in the brand new video. And as always, take good care.